The last time wrestling was broadcast on TBS was the final episode of WCW Thunder on March 21st, 2001. January 5th, 2022, wrestling is back on the Superstation. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone calling the wrestling action. My God, the legacy of Jim Crockett Promotions continues to live on to this very day. I'm John Reckton with my review of AEW Dynamite, the TBS debut. Let's hear it for Newark, New Jersey. That's where they were, in a pretty hot crowd, and boy, I have thoughts on this show. Let me know your thoughts on this show in the comments, please. It is just wild to think, with the rich history of, Turner Network and wrestling, and just, TBS, TNT, all that stuff. It's just goddamn wild to see wrestling back on TBS. But it is really, really cool, especially for people that love territorial wrestling and love the history of wrestling and everything. It's just really, really nice, and you get to see it brought into the modern age. And they started off pretty goddamn hot. So you have JR, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur on commentary, Bryan Danielson making his entrance, and Hangman coming out to a pop. I can't get over that font. I'm sorry, but yes, Hangman Page and Bryan Danielson to Electric Boogaloo. AEW title match. There's judges at ringside. And it was Paul White, Jerry Lynn, and Mark Henry. And that was fine. They didn't end up factoring into the finish, but, it was what it was. It is always nice, given that Jerry Lynn is one of the unsung heroes of wrestling, and given how many great matches he had with RVD and just how great of a worker he was and how great of a coach I imagine he is backstage. It's just really, really nice to see guys like Jerry Lynn on television in 2022. Also, nice to see the Paul White pop back up, because you don't even really get to see him on camera anymore, even, if they pop over to, the commentary for AEW Dark Elevation. They touted him as this big signing, and he hasn't really done all that much. But anyway, Danielson versus Hangman. I'm sorry, Hangman. I just can't get over it. Could they top the hour-long classic that they had just a couple weeks ago? Yes. In fact, I would argue this was better. Now, I love that hour-long match. I thought it was great. I thought they paced it well, and I thought it was fucking incredible. I know some people were against it, because it went so long and everything. Oh, they were just doing it. They were just, they went too long, this kind of stuff, because some people don't like long matches like that, and that's fine. That's all good. There's going to be stuff on this show that I probably didn't like that people are probably going to get upset at. But I love this. This may end up being one of my favorite matches of the year. Yes, we're only a few days into the year, but this was really, really good, because they kept the pace up. They did slow it down at times. Both guys bled, and both guys just went all out and everything and just beat the shit out of each other. And I'm going to go over some of the spots, because this did take a while. This went over 30 minutes, but this was really, really goddamn good. And I wrote down, Danielson is having the time of his life here. He kind of stalled and did, some heel stuff with Paige and everything. Paige dived. He missed the moonsault. But, Bryan took an apron bump. Ouch, an apron powerbomb. Dive got countered. Paige went into the barricade. That was a beautiful break spot. We had chops and arm focus, because Danielson was trying to take away the buckshot. And the top rope clothesline by Paige after a bit was, pretty good pop. Catch and release, throw by Paige. That was just really, really good shit. Cowboy shit chance. The step spot and an obvious blade job, because they cut away for a while, and Paige did end up bleeding. Tell you right now, Danielson really ended up bleeding. I wrote down, Danielson's working his ass off to make Paige a star. Not that Paige wasn't rising up back on his feet. No, not that he wasn't doing really well before, and not that the match with Omega at Full Gear was necessarily bad, but there were just, certain things here and there, whatever. But Paige is a champion, and this is easily the best. You can put up the 60-minute time limit, or the draw, and you can put up this match. And whichever one you choose, you could choose both. Why not both? You could end up enjoying either one, and you enjoy one more than the other, and that doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just, Danielson did everything, because at this point, does Danielson need the belt? No. Would it be nice for him to have the belt? Sure. But he doesn't need it. He can make stars, because he's just that goddamn good. And he was really working his ass off to, make Paige seem, just like the great credible champion that we know he can be. Elbows, and just he's got a cross arm breaker, and he's just smashing him in the face and everything, trying to open that cut more. DVD catch by Paige on the apron. Ouch. Well, actually, I think it was on the, but anyway, that was in the ring. There was an apron bump a little bit later. We get a table outside or a tumble outside where they did the suplex thing over. The table spot actually comes up later in the program. Ouch. And he just ends up beating the shit. He posts Danielson a few times. Danielson's bleeding. I mean, gushing. He was gushing a lot. He was like, his head was soaked. It was brutal. Paige does get cocky, does the jumping jack thing like, Danielson was doing earlier. We get the fall away overhead throw off the top. It would even, like a little, like a flip. That was really nice. Almost moonsaulting him there. Good shit. Really, really good shit there. Apron bump to Paige. That's right. That's what that was. But then, no, there was a dead eye on the floor. Why was there a dead eye on the floor? Who the hell knows? Danielson dropped to avoid the buckshot, like, oh, he's exhausted and everything, but he did get the bell lock out of nowhere. The moonsault did get hit outside a little bit later. The psycho knee, I call it the psycho knee, I just think that's better. And then headbutts aplenty. Shibata comes back, and Danielson says, okay, I'm just going to pay tribute to Shibata's comeback by headbutting the fuck out of him. And boom, 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 they're doing all that. Gotch pile driver for 2. We get the stomps. Kirk Franklin approved stomps, by the way. If you get that, you get that. Submissions countered. Backdrop driver to Bryan. And then buckshot. 1, 2, 3. Emphatic. Good shit. Danielson looked great. Great heel work. Paige looked like a star. Comes out better here. I wonder where they're going to go after this. Because now that, Paige has kind of emphatically beaten him, I don't know if you can revisit this for the next few months. Now, you can, but I honestly think Paige can move on from this and do something else. You can revisit this as Double or Nothing, because you can run this back, but not right. Don't, go the well too goddamn often and poison the well. Just do something where you're careful and you actually can get a lot out of this program off and on. But really, really good stuff. Hot opening. And then the Acclaim, they're doing a pre-tape about Sting and Darby. They're going to drop a disc music track next week. So then Walt Disney's favorite, wrestler, MJF, and if you get it, you get it, was going to face Captain Shawn Dean. Punk had said it'd be a shame, I think he said last week, it'd be a shame if somebody, kept, stopped your ascent, up the ladder and everything. So he comes out and, MJF runs out. Well, the match is still going. Hits a GTS on Captain Shawn Dean. DQ. The record's reset. So MJF's 0-1. And he's all upset and everything. They start having a back and forth and everything. I'm not going to go over every single line. But he says Punk says this is going to happen every time you step in the ring until you face me. The crowd chants shut the fuck up at MJF. Without me you're nothing. He says, I'm the savior, not you. PG Punk chants. That New Jersey's a defiant crowd, a good crowd, by the way. Do you think you're Roddy Piper? He says to Punk, because last time I checked, Piper was talented enough to main event a WrestleMania. That was good shit. That was good. I mean, and I'm sure Punk's over it now, but for a while that really did bother him, and Punk really should have main evented a WrestleMania or 2, in all honesty. Especially given some of the WrestleMania main events they had at some points. But that was a good line. And he says, he basically just talked about, there was like all this back and forth and all this great stuff. And if I'm not showing the proper respect, MJF said, maybe I'll main event a WrestleMania 2. And then he says, well, yeah, go ahead and go there and main event, night 4 of a buy one, get one special. Which, that's referring to the fact that they're already trying to, do package tickets to, sell more for 2 nights of WrestleMania in Dallas Cowboy Stadium or wherever the fuck they're calling it. That was some good stuff. Now, was Punk thrown off by the Mania main event? Nah, I doubt it. I mean, if he was, whatever. I mean, if he's still holding on to that after a number of years, that's his business. But that was good stuff. Then MJF says, well, you want the match? You want the match? Well, next week it's going to be CM Punk versus Wardlow, because he's got guys that can stand in front of him. He says, soon you'll run out of people to hide behind, and I'm going to put you to sleep. Then we get a pre-tape of Cody and Sammy 3 that's going to be taking place on Saturday. Yes, I will be reviewing Battle of the Belts, because why not? Let's hear it for the Judas. TBS chants. Okay, so let's just focus on the fact that Chris Jericho probably is all upset and everything because his wife and mother-in-law were not, were part of the unsuccessful attempt to overtake the, overtake democracy and overtake the Capitol building and everything, because Chris Jericho, much like anybody that donated Donald Trump, they're a bunch of cowards. And the people that participated in the riots and everything are a bunch of goddamn cowards. And they hate democracy. They don't deserve happiness. They deserve to have their children and everybody ripped from their goddamn arms. They deserve to end up alone and afraid. And oh yeah, that one that they try to tout as a martyr, Ashley, or whatever the hell her name is, you know what? She got what she deserved. Nobody has any sympathy for her. And if you do, go away. If you support in any way any of that shit that happened on January 6th, I want you the fuck out of here. Because I don't mind people having different opinions. And I'll get off my soapbox here in a minute, but I'm going to drive people away intentionally. You can have your opinions. Your opinions are wrong in this case, because this is all about being a decent human being. But I'm done with the tolerance and stuff like that. No. You need to cut the head off the goddamn dragon. We need to eradicate that kind of behavior, forcibly if necessary. And Chris Jericho donating thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to an individual that has been credibly accused by a number of women and everything and has done a whole bunch of bullshit. Jericho exposed what he was. A guy that likes to spray paint his goddamn hairline and everything. And who am I to talk about somebody's hair? I at least embrace the fact that I don't have much of a hairline. Chris Jericho is living off of his reputation that started to dwindle about 10 fucking years ago. He cheated on his goddamn wife with Kelly, if we're being perfectly honest, and probably multiple other women. And then again, if you saw his wife first name, lots of numbers. I mean, really, why the fuck would you marry anybody like that? But not that Chris Jericho's a fucking prize. He's a goddamn embarrassment, a failed rock star. He was told not to sing because he overshot his voice. He's an anti-masker. He doesn't believe in a lot of science and reasoning and everything. He's a fucking idiot. So I hope Chris Jericho has a terrible 2022. So yeah, anyway, the last time he was on TBS was April 7th, 1999. It was versus Booker T. I think he cheated. And he said dipshit like about 5 times. Jericho is pandering to the fucking crowd like crazy because he knows the vast majority of people do not care for him. Like, they don't. Like, he gets some cheers, but there are some people that are just sitting on their hands because Jericho isn't what he used to be. Even taking the personal stuff out of it, Jericho is not nearly worth the goddamn money he's being paid. He's not a big star anymore. He's living off of his goddamn reputation. Here's 2.0. He calls him Terrence and Phillip and everything. Here's the thing. Terrence and Phillip actually used to be funny. Jericho hasn't been funny for about 5 years. The fucking list thing was actually pretty funny. And even that, God, the Festival of Friendship is almost 5 years ago. You know, one of the last good things Jericho did in wrestling. The spray painted hairline, my fucking goodness. That was just ridiculous. Go back and look at it if you actually want to try and stomach this fucking segment. It's goddamn embarrassing. And 2.0, credit to them for trying to make the best of this. Calls him squarehead and pinhead. Garcia tries to save this. He gets hit with a bat shot, but then, gets beat up and everything and stuff like that. Eddie, Santana Ortiz run him off. Jake Atlas is all elite. And good for him. Good for Jake. If he is in the right place and everything and, wants to be in wrestling, good for him. So, Cole Redfish are talking about, the band being back together, and Cole versus Atlas and stuff like that is going to be, Cole versus Atlas is going to be taking place on Rampage. I do want to say quickly, because they talked about Brandon, being behind the camera and stuff like that. I believe Matt Jackson and Brandon Cutler tested positive for the virus. But tested positive for COVID. Now, hopefully, personal feelings aside on this. Everybody needs to get over this virus. If you get it, recover, rest, get better. We'll all get through this. Let's just be as safe as possible, get vaxxed and wear a mask and stuff like that. Actually believe in science. Hopefully, Matt Jackson and Brandon Cutler get back 100% very soon. And then we have Wardlow versus Antonio Zambrano. And Spears hits a C4 outside. Wardlow's upset because this was before the match. So he says, pin him. No, he just hits 5 power bombs. The crowd roars every single time. And Wardlow gets the victory. There you go. And Wardlow's getting pretty goddamn over. I mean, next week's going to be the tipping point or whatever, because they're probably going to do a DQ thing, but Wardlow's going to be upset that he wasn't allowed to beat Punk. Recaps of Layla going into business for herself. Layla Hirsch as a heel, not a bad idea. So here we go for Jade Cargill versus, Jade Cargill, sorry, I don't know why I had a D to her last name. with Smart Mark Sterling versus Destination Unknown, Ruby Soho, TBS final match. The TBS Women's Championship Finals. How good of a magician is Ruby? I didn't like this match, and I know that that's going to surprise some people. I recognize that Jade has the look, and she is learning, and she's willing to learn. They put her out on TV way too goddamn soon. The instant she was announced in this tournament, I knew she was going to win it. I did like that God saved that bitch jacket that Ruby had. Ruby tried, and Jade did a couple things decent, but she isn't ready for long matches. I can't ignore what's in front of my eyes. There was a hit and run stuff, the drop kick to the floor. Ruby looked like she exploded her goddamn back. Probably herniated a couple discs in her back carrying Jade. Mercedes runs down, and then Thunder Rosa runs down. Like, sprint. Thunder Rosa must have set the world speed record right there. She's the real Flash. Just running down there and beating, just boom, just clubbing her. I think she hit her like 20 times before Mercedes even realized it. That was great. But then they fought off. They just fought off because why not? Jade focused on the shoulder, and then because Ruby had previously an injured shoulder, actually 2 injured shoulders. There was a pump kick, and then that was 2. Saito suplex by Ruby. And then Sterling tries to do a distraction. He gets kicked out. And a no future kick for a close 2. Ruby sells her shoulder. We get a split crowd here at this point. And an attempt to do Jaded off the top, but Jade realized probably doing it off the top was a bad idea. Did it off the second rope. That's smart. It was not what Beth Phoenix did to Kelly at Night of Champions 2011, but then again, experience levels, that makes sense. Jade is the first ever champion, first ever TBS champion. Congratulations. There were also, and this is where I'm going to get back on my soapbox, because there were people that were actually saying, oh, the only reason they made Jade the champion is because of the stuff that happened with Big Swole and Tony Khan, all that stuff and everything, and the comments that, the back and forth and that bullshit. I'd said as much about the Khan Swole stuff in a previous Real Honest Thoughts. You can check that out. Here's my problem with it. If they had presented Jade as somebody that just, was not on TV or was just on the YouTube shows, but was just losing, and suddenly went on a winning streak in this tournament and just conveniently won the championship, I could see an argument there. That's not how they've been presenting Jade. They've been presenting Jade as this unstoppable beast that sometimes will beat people in a minute, which is smart, and then has longer matches with people that she beats, which is not smart because she's not ready for it. But it's not trying to placate the people that were upset. And don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Tony Khan's comments, and I'm not saying the Big Swole was the best wrestler either, but these two things do not correlate. This does not compute. That's basically what it comes down to. They're not the same thing. Now, good luck to Jade. I don't really have a lot of faith in this title reign. I'm not saying Jade isn't trying, and Jade apparently celebrated with her daughter. Somebody took a picture of that. That's good. That's good. It's a feel-good moment. I'm sorry, but this didn't click for me. This didn't. I can't ignore what I feel and what I'm seeing, but I'm happy for Jade, but they aren't exactly starting the TBS championship off on the best foot. When in the ring, you are basically a lesser Goldberg. In the ring, I emphasize. Because apparently, by all accounts, Jade outside of the ring is very, very good. And very, very nice. And is willing to learn. Unlike Goldberg, who was just a Clydesdale horse and Bret Hart's least favorite wrestler, at least one of his least favorite wrestlers. Can't blame him. Whatever. It is what it is. I had to get on my soapbox there for a minute. We get a D pre-tape with JR, and she wants to beat Sheeta and claim her spot at the top. I have a PhD in this shit. Malachi entrance. It's spoopy. And we get Julia Hart. She has an eye patch. She's a pirate. So it's Malachi versus Pillman Jr. Bryan wanted revenge. Hit a dive. Actually, a nice drop kick, through the ropes. And a couple good moves. And then Malachi took over with kicks. Pillman came out with a flurry. Slipped off the top. Bit of a weird spot, but, they tried to make it work. And Black Mass, 1, 2, 3. And then Malachi goes to leave, stares down Julia, scaring her and everything. I've seen this movie before. And then The Lucha Bros show up that are in the next match, and then the lights out, and then Malachi's suddenly on the stage. It's like, I'm just going to walk around you and everything because I can see in the dark, not you. Alright, so Ruby's interrupted by Britt, Jamie, and Rebel. You've never beat Riho, so leave me alone. And then they get in a fight, and then Riho tries to come. Oh, Riho, the lovely fluffer is trying to do stuff. That's adorable. Alright. So, Rampage is going to have Cole versus Atlas, 2.0 and Garcia versus Eddie and Santana and Ortiz, and I believe that's some no DQ match. And we get Aaron Solo versus Hook! So then we go to Solo and QT talking about Hook! Okay, I'll stop that until the Rampage review. And then it's going to be Britt and Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Riho. Okay, at least they're doing 4 matches. That's pretty smart. And then Battle of the Belts is going to be Britt versus Riho and Cody versus Sammy. I imagine they're probably going to take Battle of the Belts and hopefully, Dark Elevation and Dark justify this, justify, having people show up for that. Unless they already taped. I don't know if they already fucking taped the goddamn thing. I don't think they did. Maybe they're going to do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. And then next week is Punk versus Wardlow, Shida versus Demon, Hobbs versus Dante. Okay. Tarzan Boy, whoa. Man, I'm so goddamn white. That gets a pop. Lucha Bros entrance gets a pop. Okay, firstly, the one thing I want to say is I hope the Phoenix is going to be alright after the terrible, gruesome injury. Very WCW Sin 2001 like. I hope he's going to be alright. That looked brutal. He was instantly point over. Luchasaurus didn't look like he was in best shape either after that spot. I hope the Phoenix is going to be alright, because Phoenix is an amazing athlete. I've seen him live, and just the stuff he can do, but if he's not careful, he's going to brain himself. He's going to seriously injure himself, and he already did. So at the least, he's out for 4 months. I think he might even be out longer, unless he wants to wrestle with a cast, and I don't think that's the best idea. But hopefully, he recovers. So it is the Lucha Bros. Now, with that out of the way, the Lucha Bros with Alex Abrahantes versus Jurassic Express with Christian Cage, AEW tag title match. I didn't like it. I didn't like it because it was just a mess. It was just a mess of moves. They didn't bother with tags. They didn't bother with any of this stuff. And Alex brought the table out a little bit later. After a Fear Factor, the stomp, that usually finishes people off, Jungle Boy kicks out. And Cage chases Alex away. Then the table spot happens. My God, Phoenix's arm, that looked brutal. And after all these moves that would have stopped the goddamn rampaging, bull elephant. Most devastating maneuver in all professional wrestling. Surprise roll up 1, 2, 3. There you go. Yay. Just do that. Just do a roll up. Good. Jurassic Express win the tag titles. It's a bit of a limp finish for the Lucha Bros being tag team champions. But then again, what happened to Phoenix? The unfortunate injury. And again, I hope he's all right. That was pretty brutal. It was a bit of a, I think it was like a 4-month reign. And it's probably the last reign that the Lucha Bros are going to have as tag team champions, if we're being honest. Jungle Boy's mom and sister were in the front row, and then they show a whole bunch of teams on the stage. They show Chris Jericho, they show Malachi Black, they show a bunch of goddamn people in the crowd. Why? Because apparently we were trying to Starrcade 1997 this bitch, showing a bunch of people in the crowd. Everybody's watching. I hope that this, run on TBS works. And reminder that Rampage is on TNT, and Battle of the Belts will also be on TNT. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.